Welcome back, everyone. If you've ever just sat there staring at a massive, daunting list of vocabulary words, desperately trying to memorize them by reading them over and over, yeah, you know exactly how frustrating that is. It's totally exhausting. And honestly, it's just not how our brains are wired to learn. We crave stories, right? We crave connections and neat little categories. So, for today's explainer, we're doing something completely different. We're going to take a super dense list of words and totally transform how we look at them. This is a strategic deep dive. We're categorizing these words into a framework that's actually going to lock them into your long-term memory.
The source text we're using for this journey is literally a page straight out of Chapter 16 from Nimisha Bansal's Vocab Prodigy. It's a genuinely fantastic resource, mostly because of this bilingual format it uses, pairing English words right alongside their Hindi translations. It really anchors the meaning if you're a bilingual learner. Okay, let's dive into this. Normally, you'd probably just march straight down a list like this, right? Going alphabetically or numerically from word 91 down to 104. But we are absolutely not doing that. Instead of treating these like isolated flashcards, we're going to connect them thematically.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, the power of precision. Second, words of growth and scale. Third, words of risk and harm. And finally, words of control and judgment. Seeing them in these three specific conceptual buckets is really going to make this dense list super digestible. Starting off with Section 1, words of growth and scale. Expanding our reality.
All right, so these are the words we reach for when things are spreading out, increasing in size, or maybe generating massive wealth. And when things are expanding like that, we have to start with our foundational word, ubiquitous. If something is ubiquitous, it's present, appearing, or found absolutely everywhere. Think about smartphones, right? They are literally ubiquitous. The source gives us some great synonyms here too: omnipresent, universal, and pervasive. And for our bilingual learners, the Hindi term provided is sarvavyapi, which just beautifully captures that exact essence of being all-encompassing. Basically, if you want to describe a trend that you simply cannot escape, ubiquitous is definitely your word. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it groups expansion into two distinct flavors. On one hand, we have proliferation. This is all about numbers. It's a rapid increase in quantity, like the multiplication or spread of internet cafes back in the early 2000s, or the proliferation of streaming services we see today. But on the other hand, we have magnification. Now, this isn't necessarily about adding more items. It's about making an existing thing larger or way more significant. It's amplification, enlargement. So basically, you proliferate to get more of something, but you magnify to make it bigger. Let's see how this actually builds into an economic or practical reality. Just look at the contrast between a fillip and affluence. A fillip is basically that initial boost, that stimulus or encouragement to get an activity going. Imagine a brand new tax cut providing a fillip to small businesses. Now, if that fillip is actually successful, it can eventually lead to a state of affluence, and that means having a great deal of money or widespread prosperity and wealth. It's that whole journey from the initial push, the fillip, straight to the ultimate goal of abundance, which is the affluence. Moving on to Section 2, words of risk and harm, the dark side of consequence. Of course, not all growth is positive, and things definitely don't always remain stable. These next few words are the exact tools we need when situations get unstable, when they start causing harm, or when things just break down entirely. Usually, that starts with a situation feeling precarious. To be precarious, or anishchit in Hindi, means something is not securely held in position. It is dangerously likely to fall or collapse. Think of a precarious stock of heavy books right on the edge of your desk, or maybe a really precarious financial situation. The key synonyms to remember here are unstable, uncertain, and risky. It really just paints this vivid picture of a situation teetering right on the brink of disaster. And this brilliantly illustrates the logical narrative sequence. Because what happens when that precarious situation finally tips over? Well, it leads directly to a detriment. A detriment is something that actually causes harm or damage. It's the tangible disadvantage, the injury, or the impairment. So say you ignore a precarious warning sign. You're probably going to suffer a detriment as a result. See how connecting these concepts makes remembering their definitions so much more intuitive? It's like a chain reaction. Now, if that detriment is severe enough, a system, a business, or even an entire idea might become completely defunct. This is the absolute final stage of failure. Defunct literally means no longer existing or functioning. It's inactive, obsolete, inoperative, or nishkriya. And it's super helpful to actively contrast this with its antonyms from our source text: active, functional, and operational. Once something goes defunct, it is officially a thing of the past. It's done.
And that brings us to Section 3, words of control and judgment, managing the outcome.
Okay, so we've got our words for growth, and we have our words for risk and collapse. But how do we actually respond to these realities? First, we look at the action. When you're faced with a detriment, you basically have two choices, and they're beautifully highlighted by the natural opposites in our source text. You can try to mitigate the problem, which means working to alleviate it, making it less severe or painful. You're reducing the impact. Or, through bad choices, the problem becomes exacerbated, meaning it's made way worse or more severe. It's aggravated and intensified. Think of it this way. To mitigate is to cool the fire down, but to exacerbate it is to just throw gasoline right on it.
So how do we actually ensure people mitigate a situation rather than exacerbate it? Well, we use rules that are enforceable. This is a crucial word for taking control. If a law or a standard is enforceable, lagu karne yogya, it means it's fully capable of being carried out. It's implementable and actionable. An unenforceable rule is pretty much just a polite suggestion, but an enforceable one, that actively prevents situations from becoming precarious in the first place. Finally, we need a way to judge the people and the elements involved in these situations. First, we ask, is a certain quality intrinsic? Meaning, does it belong naturally? Is it an inherent, essential, fundamental part of the system? Then, if a person displays incredible mastery in handling a crisis, we praise their prowess, their exceptional skill or expertise. On the flip side, if we're criticizing someone's total failure to act, we'd probably use a pejorative term. A pejorative expresses contempt or disapproval. It's an insulting, derogatory word. Notice how grouping these three gives us a complete toolkit for assessment. We can recognize fundamental traits, praise exceptional skill, or express severe disapproval. So the crucial point is, seeing them mapped out in this quick recap table really reinforces those three thematic buckets we just talked about. We didn't just read 14 random words today, did we? We built a conceptual map. We explored growth with words like ubiquitous, we navigated risk with precarious, and we established control with mitigate. By linking a key word to its conceptual theme, its synonym, and its antonym, you're literally building multiple pathways in your brain to retrieve this information when you actually need it.
Because at the end of the day, learning vocabulary isn't really about just passing a test, is it? It's about sharpening the exactness of your own thoughts. It's about precise communication. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Which of these newly structured, powerful words are you going to choose to make a constant, pervasive part of your everyday conversations? Seriously, which one will become ubiquitous for you? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep building those mental connections, and I'll see you next time.